Hey, this is Wesley,
This is Ka'shenia,
and we would like to welcome you to the
the
Underground Geek
Underground Geek
Shack.
Shack. Sup, my dude? How's it been?
All right, it's been fine. So today we are jumping into the world of sports anime,
Yep.
and
Mm.
Kashina hasn't really watched a lot of sports anime, so your boy is over here trying to educate her on some good sports anime.
Because I'll legit say the only sports anime I've seen is Yuri on Ice. And
She's been missing out on the anime we're talking about today. She's been missing out on that one. She's missing out on Hajime no Ippo and
Blue Lock,
Blue Lock. You're missing out on Captain
Prin-
Tsubasa. You're missing out on Inazuma 11.
Prince of
Slam
Tennis,
Prince of Tennis, Slam Dunk. Like,
Free.
but all jokes aside, we are talking about Haikyuu today.
Yep, yep, yep.
So, hey, do you want to know something?
What was?
The volleyball player is not a soloist, but a member of an orchestra. When that player begins to think, I am special, that player is finished.
Definitely, most definitely. And I do have to say, with my journey when it came to Haikyuu, so I think I've made this known before, but I'm not a big sports person. So like I'm not big into football. I really don't watch baseball. That's like my family. They're all sports people. I'm the weird one that's just like, well, I prefer video games and anime. So when sports anime started becoming more of a thing, because when I was growing up, I think Wes could attest to this. When it comes to sports anime, there was just there's that basketball anime, I think it's like Kuroko no Basket or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yep.
Definitely Prince of Tennis. What are some other older sports anime?
Hajime no Ippo,
Hajime no
Captain
Ippo.
Tsubasa. I
Well,
listed this out in the beginning.
listen here, Wes. But those were the things that I had growing up, and I really didn't see the appeal to them because I was just like, ill sports. But I finally gave it a chance when
Mm-hmm.
it came to Yuri on Ice. Now, for those of you who don't know, Yuri on Ice was about male figure skating, and a lot of people were just kind of like, what? They didn't want to give it a time of day. They're just like, it's just figure skating. But it's not just the figure skating that people like to watch. Like they love watching Yuri's progress when it comes to how when he first started working with Victor to how everything came out in the end. But they also like the subplot of the progression of how he was forming relationships with other people,
Mm-hmm.
and that was what brought the interest into it. So once I watched Yuri on Ice, I then realized sports anime wasn't just about the sport. And I can definitely say that with Haikyuu because one, I've never been so freaking intense and ready for some volleyball in my entire life. Each of those matches, I'm just like, come on, boys, you got this. You got this. But oh, I should probably say we're only talking about season one, just to let you know, because I know there's like 4 seasons and 2 movies.
Wrong.
Wes,
There's
you?
3 seasons.
Oh, I thought there was 4 seasons. There's three
Did did
seasons.
did you not look at Crunchy? Oh yeah, that's right. You totally went the opposite way. So on Crunchyroll, there are 3 seasons and 2 movies out so far.
Oh, and I should probably say this, and
She
it's what's
watched
big.
the dub.
I watched the dub. A friend of mine gave me a DVD that had the English dub on it, and I have to say the dub is freaking golden.
I
But
know.
Wesley, you've originally watched the dub, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I watched it probably like twice over
So let
because
me.
because back when so I'm also going to mention this. So
Okay.
I've started reading the manga for
Mhm.
Haikyuu. I'm only
Yeah.
on chapter 7. I'm not that fast of a reader, so I ain't gonna be able to get to chapter 70, which the for what season 1 covers of the manga is from chapter 1 to chapter 70.
Mm.
And so I'm not going to be able to read all that real quickly. No, I'm going to take my time because I want to
Yeah,
enjoy it.
yeah.
So, uh, yeah. So it covers from chapter 1 to chapter 70, but when Haikyuu was coming out, because it came out in 2014, and
Yeah.
it came out in 2014. The when I was watching it, I didn't watch it when it first came out. I watched it around probably like when it's when it only had 2 seasons out. So I watched the first season and the second season in dub, and then I rewatched the first season in dub because I really didn't have anything else better to do. So I rewatched it, and then I was like, oh yeah, there is a manga about this, isn't there? And so by the time I picked up the manga was on like its last couple chapters before wrapping up. So I was like, oh dang, I kind of missed the hype for this one, but I'm still gonna read it. So yeah. But all in all, the stuff about Haikyuu is good because not only does it bring in the sports aspect of volleyball, but then it also brings in the slice of life aspect that you would think that's only in a slice of life anime. And it's good because it has a way of balancing out both of them together. So it's not too much on one side, not too much on the sports, not too much on the slice of life. You get that nice blend equally. So
Yeah. And I want to ask you this before we move on to actually talking about the anime itself. So, because when you rewatched it this time for the podcast, you rewatched it, you had to rewatch it in sub because that's what's only available on Crunchyroll. Is that correct?
yep. Only it's all so it's not only on Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll no longer has the dub unless you want to watch it in Brazilian, if you want to watch it in Portuguese. Yeah, those are the only ways. Um, so Crunchyroll no longer has the dub. Hulu no longer has the dub, and Netflix no longer has the dub.
So I need to look into this. I need to know why the dub was pulled from this platform.
So yeah.
But I wanted to ask you this: as someone who has watched both the sub and the dub,
Hmm.
what would you say are the main differences? Did you notice if the characters seem to be portrayed one way or the other when it comes to either the sub or the dub? Because I've read some comments about how the dub seems to bring a more comedic, like actual high school portrayal of the different high schoolers. You could
Hmm.
see them actually acting and talking in these ways because, I mean, keep in mind, these are kids. They are high schoolers. High school boys, we were all in high school before. We know how silly they can be. So some
Hmm.
people said the dub brings that aspect to it, while the sub still makes them act like a little bit like high schoolers, but it's more or less they're acting in a more I'm expected to act this way. It's kind of weird to say, but I want your thoughts on this.
It's pretty much the same.
Is it
Like
really?
it's pretty much that like there are some differences like when it comes to uh Alba Josai and it's like, oh hey look, that's in the dub they go, oh look, that's onion head. And in the sub they go, oh look, it's turnip head. It's still pretty much the same.
Okay,
And so it's still balances out, except like the dub leans more on the comedic side of things, and whereas the sub, it has its comedic moments, and it's just like, all right, I know what's going on here, and you're just like, all right, cool, I'm rocking with it. So yeah.
gotcha. Because yeah,
The
I've
most
watched.
people who sit there and be like, "Oh, well, they just seem like they're forced to act this way." They're nitpicking. That's pretty much it. People are
Okay,
gonna nitpick. It's kind of human nature at this point.
that's what I expected. So, I mean, maybe one day I am going to give it a shot to watch it in sub just to see some of the differences because, I mean, many people could find it. Go onto YouTube, look up Haikyuu dub moments, and you'll just kind of see the chaos that comes from that. Of course, it's all out of context, so you don't know what's happening. Like, I know there's one scene from season two where you hear the boys talking in the background and you see the screen panned onto the second manager that comes onto the team and the guy says, let me see the freaking moon. And I'm like, what the heck is happening? But that's what I wanted to know. So thank you for quelling my curiosity when it comes to the difference between the sub and the dub. So let's get, before one more thing before we get into this. What were your thoughts? What brought you into actually wanting to watch Haikyuu? Like, let's see. I'm on my
So
anime list.
are you asking me what brought me in to watch Haikyuu my first time around? Or are you asking me what brought me into watching Haikyuu my second time around?
What brought you into watching Haikyuu your first time around? Because let me name off some of the stuff that came out spring 2014, because that's when this came out, like you said. So there was No Game, No Life, Fairy Tale, um, let's see, Data Live 2, and of
Season
course,
two of Data Live.
and
I'm on what we're on season five now? Like golly.
of course, I know there was other anime that you were probably in the process of watching around then. But what made you look at Haikyuu and say, "Yes, I'm going to watch this"? Now I know. Oh, actually, Dragon Ball Kai came out around this time as well. Interesting, but I know this wasn't the only anime that was out around this time. And I know you said you didn't get into it until maybe like a little bit after it was released, but what made you look at Haikyuu and say, "Yes, I'm going to watch this anime"?
Because most times I remember this is like this is what I was getting into Crunchyroll.
Okay.
And so at first I was like, 'cause I think I watched it through Netflix.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch it because Netflix at the time only had a couple anime out. So I was
Yeah.
like, I'll watch Haikyuu. I don't know what the heck Haikyuu is, but I'll watch it. And so I watched it, and good thing for me, it was in the dub. So I was like, hey, yo, I don't have to read subtitles. And so I watched it, and I was like, hey, yo, Karasuno. I was like, volleyball. I was like, good receive, nice skill. And I was like, all right. I was hooked. I was going in, and I was like, all right, cool, cool. And then almost every team that showed up when you had freaking Nekoma show up, and I was like, yo, who the freak are you? And then when Alba Josai showed up, I was like, who are you? And then when we got Shira Torizawa, and I was like, hey, yo, these people tall as mess, but who the freak are they?
I was about
So
to say, yeah, there were plenty of moments where I'm like you, when I was watching it and we see all these boys come to the screen, I'm like, hey, yo, hold up, who are you? Dang, you're big.
and then
Because, I
like
mean,
there
we've,
there's there were moments where I sat there and I literally had to think, and I'm like, dang. Like, so there's a moment in this show called Winners and Losers,
mhm.
and it's when you actually get to see the girls volleyball team for one.
Oh,
and
yeah, I remember that
and
episode.
you're like, when I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, this is the girls volleyball team, and like the captain's like, yeah, we're gonna go in and train. We haven't really been training all that much and everything. And I'm like, that doesn't sound too good if a tournament's coming up.
Yeah.
And and so they're doing their best. And one of her teammates is like, I can't do this, I should have trained harder. And the captain's just like, hey, yo, we're gonna leave our stuff on the floor. We're gonna, fight till the bitter end. The ball hasn't hit the ground. And I was like, all right,
Yeah.
cool, cool. And then it's their senior year, because in Japan it's when you were a third year. And it's Haru, it's
The
you, the third
third
year.
year. Persona makes its way
And
back into this conversation.
and like for some people, this is their last chance
Yeah.
to play in a tournament. And and it's like, when not so this only wasn't just happening for the girls volleyball team, it was also happening for the volleyball team that Karasuno was going up against.
Yeah.
And it was Daichi's
Third.
close friend.
Yeah.
And so the thing that sucked is when, when the girls volleyball team loses, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, the captain's so strong." And one of the volleyball members is like, "No, you have it wrong. She's putting on a front until no one is there."
And then when we see
And
her
when
go
she turns the
inside home,
corner and she's like down on the stairs, and then she starts crying, and I was like, yeah, because you're in your last year, and that's when the doubt starts to set in. That's when you're like, oh, I should have trained more. I should have did
yeah,
this. I should have did that. I shouldn't have slacked off. And then, you know, even with the other team too on the men's team, and it's just like, he's like, we should have did this. We should have did that. We should have did
yeah,
this. And then the thing that is, it's when they both come to the realization that, hey, at least I got to play volleyball.
yeah. Because
And
that's
and that's the thing is that, like, in order for Karasuno, who's technically our main character, in order for Karasuno to get higher up in the tournament, they have to knock a couple people down, even though
yeah,
they don't want to. And you know, you're gonna ruin a couple people's sets. You're gonna ruin a couple of people's, chances at trying to get up there, trying to get up against Alba Josai, Shina Torizawa, and all the other, places that you can actually probably go to Tokyo if you wanted to, but sadly you wouldn't be able to because your run got cut short.
yeah. So I remember there was a line where it says, "Don't focus too much on the top. Focus on your next game." I
Hmm.
remember. I think that was one of the things that the coach said. And like you were saying, uh, I realized when it comes to this anime, it is really easy to get very tunnel visioned into Kurosano's success because a good way. I'm trying to remember. Okay, so remember the guy that basically kind of taught. Okay, Oikawa, the one who kind of taught Kageyama everything. He called him his protege and everything like that, right?
Yeah, Oikawa, yeah.
Yeah. So remember his thing was he wanted to beat and continue on in the tournament because he needed to go against a school that beat him.
He needed to go up against Shino Torizawa.
Yeah, he needed to go against Shina Torizama. So, blah. Sorry, it's some of these names.
No, that's the name of
Yeah,
the school, Shino Torizawa.
yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like
Just
some of the
think,
names.
just think Shina Tora and then Aizawa.
Shina Tora Aizawa.
Shina Torizawa.
Shina Torizawa.
There you go.
But yeah, it's going to take a couple of times, but Shina Torizawa. So because Oikawa, he had this whole thing because he doesn't have beef, but like he has history with the school when it came to their middle school and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So, because another thing about this is like, I find it interesting how when it comes to most animes, we expect the underdogs to always win. So it is such a twist, and it is a very heartbreaking twist that the school that we were rooting and watching throughout this whole entire time, we want them to win. We want them to win. It's neck and neck. They were going at it. They've been deucing each other for a lot of like sets towards the end for that final game, and we're like, yes, our boys, they're going to win. We see Hinata go up and they're doing their special attack, and we're like, yes, they're the ones that are going to win. And for them to lose,
Hmm.
very heartbreaking, but, and you're just not expecting it. I legit cried when that happened.
Hmm.
But you have to remember that it's not only our boys that are fighting their hardest to try to continue on. This is a tournament.
Hmm. Yeah.
We are introduced to Oikawa's point of view. We see through his memories how he was beaten by Shina Torizawa back in middle school. And he says, I will never lose to you. I will fight you later on. You are not going to defeat me. So we see that other teams are fighting just as hard as our boys.
Hmm.
And that's really interesting. And one thing you do have to keep in mind. Now, I know a lot of anime has kind of done that already, where we see two opposing sides going at each other and they're fighting for what they think is right.
Hmm.
My Hero Academia, we see what the heroes are fighting for. They're fighting to protect everyone else. But when we go to the villain side of things, we see that they're not just evil, but they are people who have been wronged and they're fighting for their own self justice. We see this over and over again. But when it comes to sports anime, it's not a life or death situation. It is just personal achievements, you
Hmm.
know,
Either
for
personal achievements or you're dealing with grief or, not, no, technically you're not really dealing with grief. You're dealing with, you know,
I must say that's
trying to live up to the aspirations of not only yourself but your team and your coach. And then something happens and then you're disheartened because you're like, I like in this case, think of it like Asahi. Asahi was who was the
yeah.
ace of Kurosano, and he for the longest time didn't go back
He didn't go back for one month.
because of date tech. And
Yeah.
so and because sat there
No, 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 no. I got you.
because date sat there, when I say date, it's date code, the other school,
Yeah.
and basically the one that's called the Iron Wall kept shutting down all of Asahi's hits, all of his
Yep.
spikes and everything, to the point where Asahi just lost all hope. He lost
Yeah.
the will to fight, and he was like, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to do volleyball anymore.
But he
And
didn't truly feel like
and
that. He was just
no,
discouraged.
like when we get introduced to Asahi, like we don't know the fact that Asahi still wants to do volleyball.
Yeah. At first, he just
We
seemed
look at
like,
him and he's just like, "Hey, nah, I'm not doing it. You're Krasno's good. Y'all don't need me."
yeah,
And then, when Daichi's like, "Hey, yo, we kind of still need you," and Asahi's like, "No, I'm good." And then he's like, "All right, then stop coming around here." And Asahi is like, you're a big old softy anyway. You're gonna come back anyway. And you know, it's the fact of you're more hard on yourself, but then you are also taking on that responsibility of trying to carry the whole team on your shoulder when the team is individuals in and of themselves. You got to let them also carry some of that heavy burden, so then you're not the one being crushed, you know, by it.
and that is something that I agree with you on that. How that was one thing that he had to learn, and I feel like each of our characters had to go through that journey on their own because Hinata, remember when we saw his very first game, he felt like he had to carry the team
Mhm.
because he was the only one that was truly invested in volleyball. Everyone else was only doing it because Hinata asked them to, basically.
Well, until he got like the three first years. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we see Kagayama, where he's obviously a volleyball prodigy. He knows what he's doing. He wants to be the setter and everything. He's very focused, but he feels like uh, they call him the king of the court because
Hmm.
he would throw very selfish sets and stuff like that. And he made it hard for his other teammates because he was the one who was ruling everybody. And for them to purposely be missing their hits on him, showing them that we don't want you. And it hit him hard because I we only really see like one scene of him when he first got started, and we could tell that he wasn't that selfish back then. So I don't know what caused him to become selfish around the time when he met Hinata. I'm
Um,
assuming that's explored more in the other seasons.
they more like, and in season two, it's more along the lines of, we know we failed. We got to get back on that horse. We got to
Yeah.
keep going, and we're gonna beat Alba Josai.
Yep.
So that's it. Training intensifies. We go and beat Alba Josai. We gonna go to a training camp and we do a freaking training thing with Kenma,
Okay.
with
I can't
Nekoma.
wait.
So,
Like, I can't, because I am going to watch season two because
mm,
season one, it got me hooked. It has me right there. Let me ask you this before we just continue on real quick. You said the new Haikyuu movie came out recently, right?
yeah, that's the battle between it's the cat and crow dumpster or garbage battle. So,
Oh,
yeah.
yes. I definitely need to watch that when I get to it
So
because
that was a good film. I only saw the film once. I went and saw it with our video editor Alan. So yeah, it was good.
and this is a new release as of what's today's date?
June
June
30th.
June 30th. When was this movie released?
Like what?
It was released this year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Give me a second.
Oh no, I was just making sure.
Give me a second.
No, okay.
Because I know my brother had sent me something around the time I was at Comic-Con. And he was like, "Hey, yo, you need to go watch this." I went there, and then my brother immediately texted me and goes, "Hey, Haikyuu movie is out. You need to go watch it." And I was like, "Oh, all right, cool." So I told Alan, I was like, "Hey, yo, I guess we got to go watch this movie." And first thing I asked him, "Are you caught up in Haikyuu?" And he was like, "Am I caught up in Haikyuu? Yes, I'm caught up in Haikyuu." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Just had to ask."
I was
So
like, okay.
so we went to go watch the movie, and the entire time I'm watching them, at first it was like literally me and him, and then probably like two other people. So I didn't want to be too loud. So I'm like, yes, 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 yes. I'm like, come on, my boys.
I imagine like we all watching it, you sounded like actual fans, like cheering on an actual team. You're just like, go cross.
I'm just like, and then like there are flashbacks that happened, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this happened.
Let me tell you, it's so I let
So
me go on this little
no, go ahead,
oh
finish what
I
you're
don't
saying.
know. I was just gonna say, let me go on this little side tangent and then we're gonna get back on track, I promise. But when it comes to anime films, I realize we are some of the most vocal fan people. Like people could be walking by the theater and we will literally be cheering on in the screen. But if you go to any other movie, it's quiet as a mouse. You'll only hear the movie. But when it comes to anime movies, you hear the movie, you hear us cheering and chanting and clapping.
Either that or you just hear us sobbing or being like, what the heck is going on here?
You'll hear that one
So,
guy in the back like, "What?"
so yeah, that happened when it was The Boy and the Herring. So yeah, I went to go see another Studio Ghibli film. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of films lately. I probably might need to do an episode on Pompo the Cinephile, but that's neither here nor there. We're gonna get back on topic. Haikyuu,
Yeah.
though. What else were you gonna
Haikyuu.
talk about?
So one thing I wanted to kind of talk about that I find really interesting was so when we're first introduced, when we first get into Haikyuu, very first episode, we're introduced into Hinata. We could tell he's very
Hinata.
did I say Hinata?
Yeah,
Hinata. Well,
yeah.
Hinata,
Don't worry,
Hinata.
don't worry. I did the same thing because like in Naruto you have Hinata, and then when you get into Haikyuu, they run it together so it's Hinata. And I was like, I had to get used to calling him Hinata instead of Hinata, and I was like, oh boy, this is gonna take a long time.
It's really funny because quick Japanese lesson, because you brought out a good point. There are some words that have the same characters, but you have to put emphasis on different words
Hmm.
to make it make sense. Because Hinata and Hinata, they're both two different names spelled the same.
Exactly the same. Yep.
Um, there's a word in Japanese, I can't think about it, but if you say it one way, it means bridge. But if you say it a different way, it means chopsticks. So I get you. Quick Japanese lesson. But back to Hinata.
Hmm.
We're introduced to Hinata. We could tell he's very passionate about volleyball. He wants to be like the little giant, his idol, the one that we look up to. And one thing that I find so interesting, we have yet to see Little Giant's face. We've only seen the back of his head, and every time we think we're going to see his face, he is, which I find really interesting, a shadow of Hinata because that's who he wants to become. That's really good storytelling, and that's good visual representation of him becoming the guy he's trying to be.
And here's the thing, you never actually get to see the little giant's face.
Perfect. I want them to keep it like that because Hinata is saying, I will become Little Giant. But for him to be, for the Little Giant to be Hinata's shadow, it's showing that he's kind of outshining the Little Giant.
Mm-hmm.
He's becoming his own legend, which really great.
Mm-hmm.
But so
Karasuno's number 10.
Karasuno is number 10. So Hinata, we get introduced. We see his first ever game because they're just like, yes, they're giving us a chance. We finally have enough members to be a team and stuff like that. We get introduced to Kageyama. They are not enemies, but they are
No,
on
they're enemies.
opposing.
They're enemies at this
Oh
point
yeah,
since it's their first game. They're enemies since they're on
the,
opposing sides of the net. Once you
the
become on the same
enemies.
side, you're on the same side.
Yeah,
So
but there are some things that they say to each other. So they're on opposing teams. You know, uh, Hinata gets shot down by Kageyama, and you feel bad for Hinata because he's trying his best. You know, he's doing this purely out of passion. He just wants to play volleyball. And Kageyama is just kind of like, you've wasted your time all for what? And that really shoots down Hinata. So we get into high school and we find out that Hinata, the only way he's been really able to practice is if was when he helped with girls volleyball.
either he helped with the girls' volleyball team or he helped with the housewives.
Yeah, and we see that yeah he's built up some skill, but he's still not really completely good at the game.
He
What
said,
he
whether it was helping out the girls' volleyball team or going to the housewives and having them help me and put some sets up for me, he said, yeah, it was all fun and everything, but I never truly felt like I was part of a team.
So then when we get to the first day where he goes into the volleyball club and he sees who do we see? Kageyama,
When he
the
gets
one
into
where
high
he's
school, you gotta
yeah
rephrase that because you
yeah that's what I said.
when he gets into high school
When he gets into the
he
high school
because right
volleyball
now the way
club.
you were making it sound like you made it sound like he was still in middle school.
No,
He's
because
in high school.
before all that, I said when he got into high school, but
Uh-huh.
you know,
Uh-huh.
I will
Uh-huh.
clarify.
Uh-huh. Thank you. Thank you. You got to clarify here, buddy. You got to remember
Sweet
we're doing this also
Jesus.
as a freaking talk show. We got to do this. We got to clarify for people.
Sweet
Jeez.
Jesus. When we get into high school and we see the high school volleyball club. Don't thumbs up.
All right, fine.
But when we get into the high school volleyball club, and I think I went ahead of myself.
We get into
Uh,
the high school volleyball
but
club
wait,
and
but
Hinata runs into the gym. The first person he sees is Kageyama because he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna, challenge Kageyama to another match." But at this point in time, Hinata thinks that Kageyama is already off in another prefecture in another high school
but wait,
and doing volleyball. And so when he runs into the gym
wait,
and
what?
he is like, "Hey, yo, I'm gonna challenge the king of the court to another match. And at this time, I'm going to defeat him." And then when he runs in and then he sees Kageyama, and the first thing he says is, "What are you doing here?" And
Wesley,
then
wait, Wes, wait,
no, I
come
will
back.
not wait. I was
Wait.
basically explaining the same thing you were saying, except
but,
differently. I'm going at this through three different ways.
but Wesley, wait, what I was going to say was at the end of their middle school game, the thing that Hinata said to Kageyama is, I'm not going to lose to you again. That was what I was just going to bring up before you went back into the thing and saw Kageyama standing in the freaking club room, not the club room, the gym at
The court,
the court
and
in
the
high
thing
school.
Kageyama had said, because they mention it, and the thing Kageyama had said was the ones who stand on the court the longest are the strong.
I get it.
So,
Jeez.
so in order for you to stay out on the court for as long as you can, you have to be strong.
So we already can tell that they were off to a really rocky start to the point where they kept arguing and they did the thing that we should never talk about again, but knocked off the principal's the vice principal's toupee. Remember,
Yep.
we're supposed to keep that a secret.
Yep. Yeah. We knocked off the vice principal's toupee, and then is that the toupee? You just now realized that everybody else realized that during the entrance ceremony. So yeah.
But
But it's also the fact of, Hinata and Kageyama now have to learn how to act as teammates instead of being against each other. Because the only thing that they knew was how to be against each other. And now you're fighting on the same side. So you can't
yeah,
sit here and be butting heads the entire time, especially if it's during a crucial match. That's not going to go well. Which I
yeah,
understand why Daichi sat there and told them, hey, you're not going to be, we're forbidding you from coming into the gym.
you're not allowed
Because
to do
if you
club
two are going to act like
activities.
this,
Yeah.
you're going to be a detriment to us. So,
He said you can't do any club activities until you learn to work together. And then they agreed to doing a match on Saturday. Um, and Tanaka was the one who basically took them under the wing and, taught them some basics. And he said, I'm going to be the one to play with y'all.
yeah, it was a
So,
3-on-3 because it was
yeah,
with two upcoming
it was with the other
members.
two, yeah, first years, which
Yeah,
is
Tsukiyama,
Tsukishima and Yamaguchi.
Yamaguchi, the legendary float serve.
Like, let me tell you, well, when we first see him, because I feel bad for Yamaguchi, because he feels like he's insignificant when it comes to the others, because he sees the other first years, Hinata with his fast reflexes and everything, and him being a really good spiker, uh, Kagayama, who is really good at reading and being able to serve the perfect, setup. Tsukishima, who is a freaking giant. Because when I first saw him, and every time I've seen clips of this, I'm just like, yeah, Tsukishima must be like one of the second or third years and stuff like that. No, he's a first year. I'm like,
Hmm.
that boy, he drank his milk. Why is he so dang tall? And then we see Yamaguchi, who he feels like he's just playing. And we see that he's beating himself up, especially over the last match where he swaps out with Hinata for one round,
Hmm.
and he couldn't even get the ball past the net, and he felt so bad. Like
Yeah.
I feel for him. He wants to try his best. He wants to be seen standing with his other teammates and be seen as incredible. So I want to see what his development is in the upcoming season.
That's why he went to the guy who runs the grocery store, and
Yep,
he's learning how to do the float serve.
yep. Which I
So
can't wait to see how this goes. I'm excited.
cool.
But continuing on with building up, we see a lot of internal, like, we see each other as enemies, but now we're working as teammates. First, we see it with Hinata and Kageyama, then we see it with them versus Tsukishima and Yamaguchi. But then,
At that point, that was where the 3-on-3 match
yeah,
when Daichi stepped in to be with uh Sukiyama
yeah,
and Yamaguchi. And when that happened, that moment it was where everyone realized Hinata had jumps.
yeah. My boy had freaking hops.
And that happened. And so you're like, oh snap. This little man can jump super high. So and I find it funny the fact that everyone thinks that he's like an elementary schooler because they're just like, oh,
Oh, hey, middle schoolers, I mean,
elementary.
elementary students need to be quiet. Ding. Yes, sir. I'm like, oh, my poor boy. But we see that the team isn't a team yet. And so after they go against each other and they actually see each other for their strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that, And then after the 3-on-3, we start seeing everyone trying to work as a team. Kagayama's still kind of working at the kinks.
Hmm.
He's starting to lighten up and not be so antagonistic towards his team. He's learning that they're working with me. I
One
don't need to
thing,
be alone in this. I need to
one
work
thing
with
that,
them.
yeah, that much is true.
Yeah.
The one thing that I did like was where Kageyama, well, it's when Kageyama's trying to put up a set for, uh, because he straight up told Hinata, he was like, you're not really, I don't think you're necessary for us to win.
He says, I won't.
I'm quoting this from the manga, by the way. He says, "You're not necessary for us to win." And Hinata's just like, "Hey, yo, put up a set for me." And at this point, he's like, "I'll put up a set for Tanaka because Tanaka's our third year. I'll put up a set for him. I just won't put up a set for you." And there's a point where Kageyama puts up a set and it's for Hinata. And so Kageyama says, just don't have any faith in. Well, he says, have faith in me that anytime that I put up a set, I'll be there to hit it. And when Kageyama puts up the set and Hinata, spikes the ball, his eyes are closed.
Yep. Because he put his
And
full faith.
everyone's like, hey, yo, why'd you spike the ball with your eyes closed? You said not to look at the ball. And so that's where their combo comes in.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool, we got it. We got them to actually work together for once.
Because like
So,
here, because I want to say the line that was said and was, "I'll put the spike towards the ones who I think will hit it," or
mhm.
because he didn't call him like useless or something like
No,
that
like I
in
said,
anime.
I
It
was
was
I was
I know you were
from
paraphrasing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
it
yeah.
was from the manga. So
But yeah. Let's see what else was there to really talk about. I mean, we were kind of jumping up all over the place,
freaking
but
Alba
let's
Josai with
I was about to say, let's talk about the last game because I mean we've
freaking
seen many
like
games.
you got Alba Josai over here, which is the school, and then you have freaking you have Aoi, you have well, not Aoi, but you have this dude. He's just like, you know what? I'm the ace. It's setter v setter, and he's like, hey yo, you better start paying attention, boy. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna run all over you. And so he decides, oh, I'm gonna just do a dunk.
Oh,
Oh, and then
the setter dump, yeah.
and I was like, hey, yo. And then Kageyama does the same thing when Hinata jumps in the air. And I was like, he gonna throw it to Hinata. Nah, Kageyama said, nah, I'm doing the same thing. And I was like, hey, yo, what the heck? And then everyone's like, he did the same thing. He did the same thing. And then he's like, Kageyama's like, hey, you better start paying attention. I can match you step for step. And I was like, hey. Whoa.
And
Like, wow.
we kind of see why there is antagonistic tendencies towards Oikawa and Kageyama because when they were both in middle school, Oikawa is older than Kageyama.
Yeah.
Um, but he saw him as like an opposition to him because he was swapped out for Kageyama. And we've seen that Kageyama was like kind of decent at throwing sets and stuff like that. But when he came over to Okawa to ask for some tips and say, hey, can you teach me how to serve? We see Aikawa reaching his breaking point because one, he was already losing to that one school,
Shira Torizawa.
Shinatori Shinatorizawa,
Hmm.
and he was kind of like at his breaking point and stuff like that. He's like, how come they're better than me? What am I doing wrong? And stuff like that. Then he was swapped out and he felt like they think I'm useless. I can't do this. You know, it was really hard to see. And for him to almost throw a punch to Kageyama, and for
Hmm.
Homeboy to be like, nope, headbutt, give him the good old, Demon Slayer. Uh,
Oh, that's one of his teammates. Yeah.
yeah, give him the good old headbutt. And I'm just like, really, a headbutt?
I mean, yeah, what more do you want? I mean, you already stopped that. You already stopped. He was literally about to hit Kageyama. Like, there's nothing more you can do. At that point, you gotta knock some sense into him. So literally, he knocked some sense into him.
And then that's when he changed his ways. He was just kind of like, and that's when we get the thought of I'm a conductor. I know how to work with my team. I know how to make them work at 100%.
I liked the
Kageyama's,
fact that what was it? It was the coach. It was the coach for Kurasuno. And I liked how he stated the setter is pretty much like the conductor.
yeah,
And which is fitting because the setter is the one who can dictate where the ball gets to go.
yeah,
So I was like, that's an interesting way of putting it, and especially it also fits with what the Brazilian coach, with the men's volleyball coach from Brazil, had stated, which is what I did during the start of the episode. But
yeah.
yeah, like that's an interesting way to think about it. Then you also got the analyzation side of things from different setters, like Kenma, my boy, Kenma from Nekoma. And
Kenma is freaking great.
you're just like, hey, all right, cool. And these guys put in the work. So,
They did put in
like,
the work, and unfortunately, Kurasuno hasn't won against Nakama yet because they had all those practice games together,
not that you know
and they
of.
did.
Not that you know of.
Well, no, 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 because it was even stated because when
Not
they
not
had their
not
practice
not
game,
not that you know of.
but the
Remember,
coach has
remember.
stated.
Do you not remember what you just asked me?
But wait, Wesley, wait. The coach stated in the episode,
Yeah, I know in
"Ha,
the episode. I know in the episode because the
we
episode
went
was a
at you
practice
with,
match. It wasn't
yeah."
legit. It was a practice match.
No, I know. That's what I said. It was a practice match. But the coach has said, yes, even though this was a practice match, we went against you 4 sets and you haven't taken one from me. That's why the coach decided he was going to stay because he said, I can't lose to Nekama like that. We're going to face him again and we're definitely going to win the next time.
And
So
plus,
I'm
because
just going
it
to,
was his grandfather that was the original coach of Karasuno,
yeah.
who had told Nekoma's coach that he was going into retirement. But yeah, back to the episode. Like, as far as we know, aside from the dumpster fight, aside from that film, as far as we know, there has not been an official match between Nekoma and Karasuno as of yet.
But until that happens,
Until that happens, we'll just have to wait and see.
yeah.
Other than that, we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah, so final thoughts. Haikyuu was one of those animes that I really wish I was in it when the hype was there. I mean, people still love it; they find it very cherishing, and obviously, people want more of it because they've recently made a movie. So let's see. And I don't know if they've reached the end of the manga because you said the manga is over, right?
Hmm. Yeah. I'm gonna continue to read the manga, so I
Yeah.
might do a couple of things with that. Who knows?
Okay.
But I liked it. Oh, one thing before we end off,
Mhm.
aside from the like, comment, and subscribe, yes, I'm throwing that in real quick. But if you do leave a like, greatly appreciated. We do a lot over here at the Underground Geek Shack because these videos and episodes, either whether you're doing it through audio or through video, come out every other Tuesday or should be coming out every other Tuesday, please. Um, but yeah, so one thing that I wanted to let you know, Kashina, is that in the manga, you
Mhm.
probably didn't know this, but in the manga, after almost every chapter, they have little stats. They have little stats
For each of the
for the
players.
characters. For the
Oh, that's
characters. So,
cool.
like one of them, they had a stat for Hinata, they had a stat for Kageyama, they had a stat For Tanaka, I'm only on chapter 7, by the way. So those are the three that I got so far, and I'll probably put something in the video about
All
this.
right.
So yeah.
I'll definitely have to see this because that does sound pretty cute. And I like that because, each commercial break that we get in the anime, we just see each of the boys practicing their serves and their targeting and stuff like that. And, at the beginning, it was we see the boy fail, but then, when we cut back from commercials, we see the boy succeed. So that's really cute. I like how they do that in the anime and the way they do it, what it sounds like they do it in the manga. That sounds cute and adorable, and I want to see that. I want to see what my boy stats are.
So other than that, we're gonna get out of here. So thanks for visiting, and we hope you've enjoyed your visit to
The
the
Underground
Underground Geek
Geek
Shack.
Shack. See you
See you
guys.
guys.
Maestro.